Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about all things board game related. Today we have a review of Rajas of the Ganges. This is a 2 to 4 player worker placement game from R&R Games, and it uses dice but not as the workers. You're going to fuel your workers with those dice.
So the idea behind the game is that you are a Rajas and you're trying to improve your province with wealthy estates. And to do that, you're using your workers to go out there in conjunction with the dice that you have in order to fuel those actions. Now, this is a very clever game because there's not really a point system within the game. What you're trying to do is manipulate two tracks that what look to be victory point tracks around the board, which are actually fame and gold. And these tracks move in opposite directions. They both start in the bottom right corner of the board, but they're going to move around the board. And the game doesn't end or doesn't trigger the end until those two pass each other.
Yeah, for one player.
Yeah.
So if one player has their fame and their money meet each other, then it's going to be the end of the game.
So the idea behind the game, as I said, is you are Rajas, you're trying to build out your estate. Now each player is going to start with one of these province boards. They're double-sided, so you can play on either one of the sides. One side's a variant. But you're going to notice you have your own little main estate in the center, and then you have all these provinces. And what you're going to be doing is building estate tiles on them and manipulating them in different ways in order to gain benefits across the side of these boards. But these also have some importance to them because they have buildings that can give you fame, and they have markets, which can give you money.
Yeah, and in addition to that, everyone's going to start with 3 workers, and everyone's going to get 1 die of each color. There are 4 color die in the game. These dice, like Jeremy said, are going to power your worker placement when you go out on the board, which we'll get to in a second. But everyone's going to start with 4, roll those up, and the color's going to have some effect on the game, as the pips will as well.
In the center, you have the main game board. On the main game board, there's a variety of different areas in here. We're going to talk about them briefly. We'll talk about them more as we talk about the steps in the game. You're going to see a river through the center. You're going to have boats. Each player starts at the bottom of the river, and you're going to be progressing. These will give you actions and abilities when you land on these areas. Only one person can occupy these, so it works in a leapfrog fashion. Yeah. When you progress forward, you're going to be jumping over other players. On the right-hand side of the board, this is going to be your scoring track for your different buildings. Buildings provide your fame, and you're going to be moving or wanting to progress to the right because each of these paths give you more victory points when you score your buildings.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the tiles that you place on your player board are going to have those buildings Jeremy just mentioned, as well as some marketplaces, which we'll get to in a second. But when you place those tiles, you're going to score according to where you are set on each of those types of buildings.
You have the palace over on the left-hand side. The palace is used for a variety of different things. It's where you're going to be placing, one of the many areas you're going to be placing your workers. Some of them require specific types of dice in order to use them. Some of them require you to give up a certain dice to get other colored dice within the game. And some are just locations where it allows you to gain dice or to re-roll your dice. And then you have these different market areas up here in a quarry.
Yeah, the quarry is going to be the meat of the game and how the main board works with your player boards. That's where you're going to go when you want to build one of these province tiles. The marketplace just below that is where you're going to go to score some of the marketplaces on your board. When you do that, you're largely going to get money. So like Jeremy said earlier, you're going to get fame from your buildings and money from your marketplaces, and that brings those 2 lines together.
Speaking about bringing those 2 together, each player is going to start here in a specific fashion depending upon your turn order. You're going to see these little markers down here. This is going to track your money. And then you have over here, you have your fame. And as we said, these are going to move around the board this way. There's some other very important things on here. These are bonus tiles. When you progress across a certain area, you will get a bonus from it and then move it to another location. So it's kind of a progressive system for moving that money track quickly. And the last thing you're going to see on this are actually 2 things. One of the things to talk about is the workers. Now, each player starts with 3 workers. However, there is a way in the game in order to gain 3 additional workers. Those are tied in very specifically to the tracks. When you progress on the money track, you may gain 1 of your workers. When you progress on the fame track, you may gain another one. And then when you progress on the river, you may gain your 3rd. So there's kind of a race in there to gain the workers as quickly as possible.
Right, and it's important to note that you're not necessarily going to get all the way up past those workers on every one of these tracks. The river is something you can do, but you don't have to do in order to play the game, although it's wise, I think.
Yep.
The other 2 tracks, like we said, they're going to meet. So you could make the money track go really far and really not do a lot of investment in your fame. Last thing to note on those tracks is the money track is going to be something that goes up and it's going to go down because you have to spend a lot of money in this game to do a lot of different things.
Two more things about components. One is the yield. These are yield tokens that can be placed on the board to kind of modify the province bonuses that you get from building the provinces. And over here you have the different provinces themselves. There's 4 different types and they're all tied into the different colored dice. And you're going to turn some of those face up for 3 different stacks. These are going to allow you to use your dice in order to buy them. So let's talk about the actual game itself. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of variety, a lot of ways to use your workers. A game works like this. You're just going to go round and round. Each player starts with 1 worker, and you're going to place one of your workers somewhere on the board. As we said, there's a variety of different places to place these workers. Some of the areas down here will simply allow you to gain a dice. When you gain a dice, you simply roll it, and then you put it on your Kali statue. That's a dice for you to use in the future. In the same way, I could put one down here, get rid of an orange dice, to gain 2 purple dice and roll those up and put them on my Kali statue.
Right, those are 2 of the most basic places to go in the palace. Like Jeremy said at the beginning, the palace fills this whole lower left-hand corner of the board. You're also going to be able to go there, I think Jeremy just said this, to re-roll your dice. And then you get up into these locations in the palace too. These are going to have individuals here that'll do very specific things for you. But for these places, you have to have a die with a certain pip count on it. So you can see 1, 2, 3, all the way through 6. And these have very specific actions that you'll be able to take. Now, like we said at the beginning, you have to place a worker there and then use the die to sort of fuel that position. So you can't go to this spot if you don't have a die with a pip on it.
Right.
Important to note, we didn't mention the karma track up here. There's a little area up here. Everyone starts with 1 karma. You can go up to 2, all the way up to 3, and you can also have 0. Karma is used to manipulate the dice in this game. Now, you can't go up by 1 or down by 1. This is simply to take any one of your die and flip it over to its other side. So if you don't have a die of a certain pip, you can always manipulate it with some karma.
And there's multiple ways that you can gain karma through the course of the game. All right, so over here you have the various different areas in order to buy provinces. This is the quarry. When you go to the quarry, you are spending money. Now, the earlier you go to that space in the game, the cheaper those spots cost. When you go here, you simply pay that money, and then you choose any one of these that you wish to place onto your player board. However, you have to use a combination of dice of a particular color. So say, for instance, I wanted to buy this green tile. You'll notice up here it requires 10 green dice. That means the pip count has to equal 10 or higher. I have to give up those dice back to the supply, and then I get to place this anywhere on my board connected to my palace originally. You can also connect off other provinces as long as there's a road that connects into that area. A couple things happen when you place that province. One is if there's a market on there, markets are the 3 different types of resources. There's no resource tokens, but they're kind of built into the tiles themselves. They have a money value on them. For instance, right here, there's 2 different markets. You're immediately going to get paid out that much money, so you're going to move up on the money track. Then you're going to place that on your board, and you can twist this and turn this however you so wish, and you're going to get any connecting pieces that have tokens on them, which are called yield tokens on them. So this one would pay out another $2 for me, and then this is built.
Yeah, right. This part of the game is all about, and like Jeremy said, the twisting and turning of these tiles. It's all about whether or not you want to try for these bonuses that are around the board. And these things are going to offer a bunch of different things, like you could get 2 dice. You could get a dice of any color. You can get some money, some fame, things, whatnot. Or you're going to try to place these things so that you can gather the kinds of things on your board that you want to use to power either your fame engine or your money engine.
And there's a little bit of a puzzle aspect here too. You want to make sure that you lay the tile in a way that can continue on to other areas. You'll want to block yourself off, because if you do, you're going to have to build off from your palace into a different direction. Now that is just those type of tiles. There's other ones that have buildings on them, or a combination of markets and buildings. When you place the building ones, again, you have to pay for its cost by that color dice, and then again, you place it on your player board. If they don't have money on there, they don't pay out there, but they will pay out with fame according to where you are on that type of building's fame track. So if I look at this, I look at these 2 icons, or these 2 types of buildings, and I'm on 2 on each of these, so I'd pay out 4 fame, moving up my 4 fame.
Right, and that's the main way, if not the only significant way you're going to get fame in this game, is getting buildings out on your board. That, in addition to some of the bonuses around your board, is how you're really going to move up the fame track.
Right. Here we have the market. When you go to the market, you simply get to pay out any of the markets that you currently have on your player board. Now each of these, there's 3 different types of markets that you see here. The die that you use or you give up in order to use this has to be equal to or greater than the number of markets that you're activating. So if I want to activate 3 of these type of markets, I have to give up a 3 dice or higher. And then I get to pay out whatever value those markets are in money to my token.
Yeah, and you're still allowed to use dice of lower number. It's just that if I have 3 of those markets, I'm only going to be able to activate one of them. Of course, you'd want to activate the one that pays out the most money.
Yep.
The other 2 spaces here in the marketplace are the only 2 spaces that don't require a die in the game.
Yep.
This is where you're going to just place a worker, and it allows you to activate 3 different markets. And like Jeremy said, there are 3 different types of markets in the game. So if you collect those, you're going to basically collect money from each of typically your best market of that kind.
Right. So you want to collect the tea and the spices and the silk and try to get high values on them because you can really push that money track up quickly.
The last place is the harbor. The harbor is going to basically control this river and your progression up it.
Yep.
Again, like the quarry, there's some spaces here that cost money. The first one is actually free. So if you're the first person to go there, you're able to activate the harbor for free. You're going to need a 1, a 2, or a 3. It has to be those dice specifically, and they're going to allow you to move either 1, 1 to 2, or 1 to 3 spaces up the river. Well, like we said at the beginning, you're going to leapfrog here. So it's very important and wise when you're taking your turn, you almost always want to take a quick look at the river to see what you could do there, because the river is going to have a number of different types of spaces here. These are all things that you can typically do elsewhere on the board or in the game. But in many cases, if you look at the river, you might have a more efficient route to getting those things done than if you just go to those spaces.
And you're going to keep taking actions round after round. Each player is going to place one of their workers. You're going to go to the next player until all the players run out of workers. Now, there's going to be times in the game where I may have 5 workers and everyone else has 3. I will keep playing all my workers while you guys sit back and watch me.
Right.
However, at the end of the round, those players that have fewer workers are going to have the opportunity to draft some of these tiles and place them onto their player board.
Yeah, the player board starts with a lot of tiles printed on it for the bonuses, but there are often much nicer bonuses available here. And it should be noted, this is sort of the more advanced variant of the game. There is a variant where you don't use a lot of these tiles. There's just the white ones, and you're always just taking one of those.
Yep. So you're going to keep playing this until those 2 markers meet each other. Now, as we said, around the money track, there's this bonus tile. Anytime you move your marker past this by collecting money, you're going to gain a bonus on it. This bonus, for instance, allows you to move up once on the river. Again, taking the action of what that river does for you. And then you're going to flip it over and find the next bonus area. When you pass this one, it allows you to collect 2 dice of any type. You roll them up, put them on your Kali statue, and it's going to progress to the next one.
And what's interesting about how that works is it keeps moving because you can't have that bonus twice. So that's why they have the token out on that track, which I thought was a very clever addition to the game, because you can move past it and then it triggers that to move up to the next bonus that you're going to get.
And there's also bonuses on the fame track. This allows you to progress one of your buildings forward, so your scoring is going to be better on those. And there's ones over here that allow you to get your worker to move up to fame, to get a free river movement. So they work in conjunction on both sides if you're having a strong money strategy or a strong fame strategy.
Yeah. Although, and we can get right into the review now, because one of the things that I think we definitely want to talk about is money versus fame in this game. Because there is one in our plays that I think is the easier one to move. And obviously, if you look at the board, there's a lot more money spots.
Yep.
There's far fewer fame. So money is obviously an easier track to manipulate and move up. You're going to be spending a lot of it as well, so you're going to go back and forth on the money track. But that is where we've seen a lot of the progression in our games.
Yeah, and I'll say this flat out. I do have an issue with the game, and it has simply to do with the 2-player game. Now, we've played this multiple times 2-player, and I've used basically, I want to try new strategies, but I always fold back into the same strategy, and that is doing a very heavy money strategy because it works flawlessly every time that I've played it. And the trick here is that you want to move up your money as quickly as possible by going to these locations. These locations are a problem for me for the simple fact that you get to, if you've built provinces that allow you to manipulate your money. Say you have a 3 tea, you have a 3 silk, and the 3 of the other resource, and every time that you activate this, you're getting 9 money. 9 money is quite a bit, right? And it doesn't require you to use a die of any type. So it's almost the only action in the game where it allows you to collect money with nothing but a worker.
Yeah, it is a very appealing spot, and Jeremy has used that to great success. It should be said, though, that it's one of those things that can be controlled or stopped. It's just up to the other players at the table to do that.
Yeah.
It's like many games.
Yeah.
You know, there's things that you can do, and you need to focus on stopping that other player. So this is definitely not one of those games where you can just kind of, I'm going to just do my own thing and not pay attention to what other strategies everyone has going on. This is competitive in that respect, particularly when it comes to some of those spots to make money.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the progression track on the money is a lot quicker. The fame is a lot less productive when you try to do that route. I've tried that route before, but I haven't done it heavily. You know, I'm the kind of gamer who wants to, when I play a game, I want to try to do the same strategy over and over and get as many points as possible.
Yeah.
And each time that I've tried it, I've tried something a little bit different, but I always feed back into that. However, having said that, if you have someone, if you've played it multiple times, you know what to stop.
Right.
You know that that's a strategy that someone who is familiar with the game may use. In a 3 and 4 player game, it's almost completely negated because your ability to abuse that particular spot is impossible. People are going to go there and use it for their own, not only their own benefit, but also your ability to buy those specific tiles that you want is going to be negated because they're probably not going to be available to you.
And not to mention the fact, we didn't say this at the beginning, but this board is double-sided.
Yep.
So this side is for a 3 to 4 player game. The other side is for a 2-player game, and it only has one of those spots.
Yep.
So obviously that reduces the number of times that people can go here. But like Jeremy said, in a 2-player game, there's one spot there.
Yeah.
So if someone does try to abuse it and the other person doesn't do anything about it, it can be significantly abused.
Especially if that person's claiming first player and can go there the very first turn of the game.
Right.
Again, having said that, we're focusing way too much on the negatives.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, these type of games I really enjoy. I love worker placement games. I love games that have dice and dice manipulation. And this has just enough dice manipulation where you don't feel hamstringed by what you have in front of you. You have the karma here, which you can completely manipulate. If you're in trouble and you don't have any karma, you can manipulate on the river in order to give you karma, or on the fame track. There's a lot of different ways, or just get new dice. Go buy new dice, roll those dice, and you probably have the combination that you need. Or go heavy into one color. Say you really want to build up your provincial board. Well, you don't want to have all 4 colors because you're not going to be able to buy some of these tiles. So there's a lot of ways to mitigate the strategy in the game.
Yeah, I think particularly just the number of places you can go on the board with low value dice. This isn't a game at all about, oh, I want all 6s. Now, as it relates to buying provinces, sure, to some degree, the higher the value, the better. But there's a lot of spaces that you're going to want to go to here that are 1s, 2s. The harbor is all 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a lot of options to use your dice no matter how you roll them. So that really isn't an issue at all.
Right.
And like we were saying, although we were focused on that one point as it relates to a good strategy, what this makes for is a great game. If you're a group that has 4 players that like good, meaty worker placement games, this is great because it can be super competitive. Now, if you're teaching this to a new group of players and you've had a lot of experience with it, you might want to go easy on them because if they have no experience with it and you know what you're doing, you'll probably roll.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I'll say too is that I typically don't like these type of games when it comes to games that don't have a structured end goal. Like most of the games you play 5 rounds, you play 6 rounds. You know exactly, you can kind of pace yourself to do things. A lot of those games I don't like. One of them I'll mention is Oracle of Delphi. I don't like the race to the end.
Yeah.
However, the mechanics in this game are so much fun to play that I like it. I like the worker placement. I like the dice. I like being able to build up my provincial board. I like the river. There's so many different things to do that just kind of gets thrown to the wayside. Like I don't even notice that when I play this game that it is really kind of a race game.
Yeah, and in most race games, and like I don't want to brand it a race game, but it is kind of like that. And in most of those ones, I think some of the things we don't like about those is it can feel very quickly like, oh, well, someone's running away with this. And while this can start to feel that way at times, there are some massive moves that players can make. So there are big swings in this game that can bring you right back into it because especially with those bonuses that you get around the track, you can have one move that
really pushes you forward.
Moves you significantly on the money track. That might give you 2 new die. You roll those, you're set up for another big turn the next round. So you can really make a lot of headway. And while you're doing that, someone might have a turn that isn't as progressive. Now, another thing I want to mention, and this is just maybe a strategy tip. Don't run out of dice in this game.
Absolutely.
If you find yourself having used all of your dice, even if it's for a massive turn, and you find yourself the next turn and you have none, you're going to be using / wasting guys going here and taking a new die, and which feels like a very, it's sort of like, well, I guess I have to take another die here.
And the bigger reason behind that is these spots, these moving up the river spots require dice. Going to these 6 palace spots require dice. And they're very important at the beginning of the round because they're usually gobbled up by people, right? The ones that don't require dice aren't as alluring to people, but these really allow you to manipulate the game state by doing these type of things. And if you don't have dice at the beginning of the round, you're going to be wasting your turn to go here to get a dice, and then everyone else gets to fill up these spots, and when it gets back down to you, you only have 1 dice. Do you really want to give it up for what's left? No, you're going to need more dice.
Absolutely. And to underscore that further, even when you go to the quarry, while it doesn't seem at first like you're using dice there, you do have to spend die to buy.
You need dice. So you need dice.
There is literally 1 space that you don't need dice for. So
super important.
Like I said, we've hammered this home now. Don't spend all your dice in 1 turn.
There's a lot more positives about this game than negatives. It looks beautiful. I love these designers. I love what they're doing in this game. I think it's one really strong expansion away from being like a perfect game. Anyway, that's Rajas of the Ganges from Inca and Marcus Brand are in our games. If you guys have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook and everything else that we do, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Season 2 of Man vs. Meeple is sponsored in part by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.